welcome to a special meeting of the Board of Directors for the purpose of workshop for Plan for Water. We will have Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Division 1.
Here.
Division 2.
Here.
Division 3. Here. Division 4. Here. Division 5.
Here. Thank you. Okay, for those that are attending and watching today, this is the workshop format, so you're welcome to speak at any time, ask a question as we go along. And as we've been doing today, our general manager will be our facilitator. And so with that, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, President Beerwagen. So just a couple of quick housekeeping items. Make sure my microphone's on. So members of the public, please feel free to either raise your hand if you'd like to participate or ask a question or comment, or you can always use the chat function and we'll squeeze you in as soon as we can. So we're currently in stage 4 of the Plan for Water process. As everybody is aware, we actually added stage 4 to the Plan for Water process as a result of input we received from a participant stakeholder through these meetings. So we've added in. I think that we'll be able to get through it in one meeting, and we may not. And if we don't, we'll end up kind of squeezing it into a second meeting. But in addition to risk for today, we are also going to review a couple of other items that were requested by the board. So one of those items was to give a little bit of an update on the outreach that has been completed to date for the Plan for Water process. I think Greg and his team and our consultant team have just done a wonderful job at increasing our reach, which has been really fun to see. So they will go through a real quick presentation regarding that. And then we did include a staff report regarding the proposed strategic planning process. And the purpose of including that at this stage, because strategic planning will be next, that's stage 5, is to obtain input on the proposed process so we can make any tweaks before we go into it. And just also remember that we plan to do the strategic planning portion off-site just to allow for a little bit more space for the public and as well as the board and staff to all participate. We thought we would possibly need a little bit more room. So those meetings will be at the Gold Miners Inn. The only exception, and we'll know at the end of this meeting, is whether we have one additional risk meeting if we don't quite get through everything today, or if our very next meeting, which is, do we know what date that is, Chris?
The next Plan for Water?
Yeah. Yeah, not off the top of our head. We'll get that by the end of the meeting so we can report back. Otherwise, the next meeting will be at the Gold Miners Inn, unless we're still finishing up risk.
July 12th. July 12th. July 12th is the next.
Perfect. In my brain, at first I was stuck. I'm like, is today July? No, it's June. Okay, so we have plenty of time. So in between now and then, we will determine for sure whether that'll be at the Gold Miners Inn, but tentatively we've already reserved the room, so we invite everybody to participate. So before we move on, let's see, Mr. Feldman has his hand raised. Mr. Feldman, please go ahead. You have to unmute yourself, sir.
Hi there. Thank you very much for including this section. And my question has to do with the larger room. Will there be Zoom access and involvement from remotely?
There sure will be. So you'll be able to come in person and participate, or you could also use Zoom if that makes it easier for you. So throughout this whole process, yeah, we'll always have Zoom also available. We find it a helpful tool for reaching more people at home who may not want to venture out. And I actually think Mr. Feldman deserves the credit, not the risk. He deserves the credit for adding risk in. So that was a response to one of Mr. Feldman's suggestions. So thank you. All righty. So does anybody have anything more on kind of the matrix before we move along?
the online version have dates?
I believe it does have the next month's date in the calendar. Moving forward, I think the dates are set. We have them the Tuesday prior to the first board meeting of the month. So those are pretty much set as we move forward. Those dates will, not the dates, but the title will shift depending, like, as Jennifer says, if we don't make it through today, on the website right now, it will say July 12th is strategic planning. Well, if we don't make it through risk today, then that'll change on the website.
I'm just wondering if, do we have an ending date for the process? Because I think people are curious about that. You know, when do we wrap up, and are we still kind of, because we've added sections, are we still at a year to year and a half? It seems like we're a year and a half to 2 years, actually.
I would say we're probably about 18 to 24 months. The unknown is how long strategic planning is going to take. We do have it all laid out from a calendar perspective, but as you just pointed out, we have pushed it. Chris, is that calendar easily accessible? Where is or accessible on the website?
Website, you click on Plan for Water.
You want to go to it real quick?
There's a calendar, blue button on the right-hand side. Take you there.
Let's share.
I don't normally go to our website.
Yeah, sorry, I put you on the spot there. You can sit anywhere you like.
Good.
Plenty of chairs for you.
Everybody vote?
Oh, yes, in the election.
Bet.
Now, when do the polls close?
8.
Everyone, please hold on momentarily.
Plan for water then?
Yeah, just go down a little bit. Oh, there you go. Go down a little bit more, on the right-hand side, you'll see
Oh, upcoming meetings, there you go.
right there.
A lot on the internet, so the browser's a little slow.
Okay. Oh, there you go. Yeah, so keep scrolling down.
June, July. So, oh, too far.
We don't have the 26th.
Too far. Go back up. Go back up.
Oh, I think that gives you an idea. So it is all on the website, and we do shift it.
So
When do we have it ending, Chris? Do we have the ending date?
we don't have that.
Gonna get dizzy.
It's been moving, so,
So we have it scheduled through currently March of 2023, but that's probably gonna get,
July 26th.
And that's stage 8.
yes.
Okay, so we have 9, 10, and.
and we have a lot
Mhm.
of stages, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's multiple sessions.
So every,
Something to change after each meeting.
so
It'll go through all of 23, if
Well,
I had to answer.
after each meeting, we do go through and update this, and so it does push things down, right? Not sure why it's stopping on March 23rd, stage 8, but that at least gets you to stage 8.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think our original hope was we'd be done in 18 months, but as we've added a couple of meetings in response to requests, it's obviously getting stretched out a little bit.
Just how long do we expect it to be before we have the results of the hydrology?
So that would be earlier, so that would be, yeah, so probably, late 23,
Okay.
late spring of 23, yeah,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's spring.
late spring.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so if there's no more questions regarding that item, I'll move on to the next one. Any members of the public? And, I know you two gentlemen are new, you can just pipe in whenever you
Oh,
want.
I'm not new, I've been here before all of these people.
Definitely before me, definitely before me, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
We're less formal.
That never stopped, Brad. Yeah, I don't know. Apparently you don't know me.
Oh, you must be Brad Fowler. I put 2 to 2 together now.
Come sit right here.
Yeah. You have a special seat.
What do they call it in baseball, the ninth man or something.
The nice man, I don't. All right.
Basketball, there we go.
Yeah, I was like, I think you're mixing sports up. All right.
Did you just call me the nice man?
When I was talking baseball, basketball, I got it all confused.
It's on video too.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, we've lost all control here.
Okay.
Okay. So we're gonna now switch into the communication outreach update that will be provided by Mr. Jones as well as Ms. Frost that is on the line. And they will kind of review what we've done today.
Yep. So, thank you, board, staff, and public in attendance and on Zoom. We were asked to bring back sort of what we've been doing. Now that we started this process with CHIP's overview of the Upper Division watersheds back in November of 2021, here we are sitting in June. It was time to sort of give a good update. Sort of what have we been doing? How has the outreach been going? We've seen, just in general, I think on our first couple Zoom meetings, we had in the 80s numbers of people tuning in. That's fluctuated here and there, and I think it's, you know, a decision based on what we're talking about and what people are interested in. So I don't think that's too much of an issue. However, what we are excited to talk about today, and I want to introduce Carolyn Frost, who's our one of our consultant teams from Titanium Incorporated. They're a multimedia consulting firm out of the Roseville, Rockland area, and we have been working with them since November on specifically social and digital media campaigns around not just the plan for water, but around NID in general. And the idea being that we created a series of key performance indicators that we indicated in the staff report here, and there's about, I just indicated probably 4 on bullet points, 5% growth in social media platforms, and we're utilizing a number of social media platforms. Carolyn will go into all of these. We do have a presentation here, so I won't take up too much time, but we're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Google Plus are the 4 that we're promoting all of NID's media posts. We want to see growth in website traffic. We want to see email open rates, and we want to see Facebook ad growth. So we've seen a number of those. You'll see some of these in Carolyn's presentation, and I think her team has been doing an incredible job wrapping their minds around the complexity of the district and the complexity of water in California in general. And staff has been really pleased as to their activities to date. With that, I'll hand it over to Carolyn, and I'll let her run through. We've got maybe about a 15 PowerPoint slide overview, and I think we talked about trying to keep this to about 10 or 15 minutes so that we get into the risk, but want to give you everybody a good overview of what we've been doing behind the scenes in this space. So, Carolyn, can you hear me? And go ahead.
I can, and I guess, Greg, I'll just ask you to move the slides forward as we go.
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect.
Oh,
well, thank you everyone for the opportunity to present. As Greg mentioned, I've been the account manager for all of the social outreach, digital marketing for NID since Titanium came on board. And everything started live in January. So before that, we were doing all the research, understanding NID's personas, what the purpose of the plan for water was, et cetera, and how we could best serve you in getting the word out, which is really the ultimate goal, is getting that community engagement in the plan for water, as well as providing value to the community through information on being water wise, on taking advantage of all the beautiful campgrounds, lakes, et cetera, within NID, and spreading the good word, so to speak. So that being said, Greg, if you could forward the slide. There we go. So basically what we'll cover are just some key metrics for the different social platforms, as well as overall website traffic, Plan for Water webpage traffic, the email campaign, how we're sharing our monthly social calendar and the communications content to support the Plan for Water process. Next slide, please. So basically, just a couple of quick definitions. As far as social platforms go, having community growth and then getting what is posted on our pages so that people actually consume them are the key metrics that we're going for. So community growth, there's page likes, just means that they support the page, want to see content from it, and following means that they'll get notifications whenever there's anything new. It'll show up in their news feed. And page impressions is just the number of times any content from the page shows up on someone's screen, their mobile app, their phone, tablet, etc. Next page, please. So as Grace said, it's really been our goal to have a 5% growth quarter over quarter. And so we've had 5 months, so not quite 2 quarters of content come out. And as you can see from Facebook, we've had a nice increase in likes and followers, but our page impressions has really been pretty exciting to see that many people are seeing our posts on Plan for Water, on water conservation, et cetera, really getting the word out. Next page, please. And then with interactions, reactions, shares, and clicks, which are considered engagement, we're getting a lot of good growth and consistency there as far as people actually sharing to their pages the videos and content that we have, clicking on the links that go back to the website or to YouTube videos, etc. So been some really consistent growth within Facebook. Next slide. And then I just wanted to share our top performing posts, and engagement rate is total number of reactions, comments, shares, etc., divided by the number of posts the page has published, and then divided by the number of fans, all multiplied by 100. I know, fancy there, but we've found over the course of the 5 months that we've been creating content that videos are really popular. So we try to incorporate, 4 videos each month now. Either there's snippets from the blogs or water safety or just different activities that are going on. So we've had one on, obviously, on the information about how NID delivers safe, high quality water. And that's from a blog, as well as water conservation and agriculture. Next slide, please. And again, a lot of different videos have been on water conservation, and then also fun ones like the annual Easter egg hunt, or a post about Scott's Flat opening up for the season and being able to make reservations. Next slide, please. And then the Instagram was a new platform for NID. Prior to February or January, there was no Instagram for NID. So this is a new page. So we don't have a huge following yet on Instagram. I have some ways that we're hoping to boost that growth with a new ad campaign. But overall, we're getting a great amount. We've had almost 5,500 people that have seen posts from NID on Instagram, and 89 people who have actually gone to the profile, which has a link called Linktree, which opens up URLs to different sections of the website, blogs, Plan for Water page, etc. So just again, the overall purpose of all of our marketing efforts are to drive traffic to the website and to increase involvement from the community. Next slide, please. And again, some reasonably decent interactions considering that we only have 20 followers right now. And again, that will continue. Next slide, please. With Instagram, each platform is different. Different things appeal to different audiences. With this one, video hasn't been as high of a performer for Instagram as it has been for Facebook, but it's interesting to see. And we like to mix things up and really get a broad range of both Plan for Water driven posts as well as value-added posts. So, excuse me, next slide, please. And more, just additional blogs that we've done. One of our personas, if you might notice, is geared to all of our agricultural customers. So we have done quite a few blogs on agriculture over the last couple of quarters. Next slide, please. And then LinkedIn, we've had really great consistent growth and impressions. Again, the numbers speak for themselves. Over 9,000 people have consumed NID content on LinkedIn, which is pretty fantastic. Next slide. And again, reactions up over 3,000%. Clicks going to the website over 400%. And again, we are constantly analyzing the data, so we're always looking for ways to improve and increase interactions, clicks, comments, and participation. Next slide, please.
I do too. Go ahead.
Why was January and March stronger than February, April, and May? Content?
It just varies. I think that because there was so much new activity, LinkedIn was paying more attention and serving our content up more often in January. March, I believe, is when we started adding videos into the mix, which I believe might have been why it increased again there. So
I think March was that snow survey video.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, if NID, if we share something, then I will push it out on my own professional LinkedIn page. So I think some of it has to do with how many of us push it.
It's definitely the content driven.
Yeah.
What is in there, and like we say, there's videos, and I think the snow survey video did.
I pushed out the snow survey video.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just think it depends on how many of us other people push it out.
yes, and that's an excellent point. The more employee engagement and in sharing posts, the more the numbers will skyrocket. So if that's something that can be encouraged to share different posts throughout the month, it will definitely impact performance as far as impressions.
Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, I don't do any other social media on LinkedIn.
I have a question. Carolyn, what happens to the comments on LinkedIn? I see there's like 4 there. Anyway, are those collected? Are we collecting those, or do we get a?
Collecting comments?
Yes. They just are there.
They're just there. Yeah.
You.
Yeah, you could go view them.
Yes, I do actually respond to them.
You do, okay.
So I respond to all of the comments, or if there's something that I don't know how to respond, I'll forward it on to Greg and Susan for a little counsel on how to respond. If you would like a monthly report of that, I can certainly include that as well, but they are responded to.
Thank you. No, I don't think.
I think Laura had.
I had a couple.
Okay.
What is the y-axis on your graph? I'm not quite sure. It doesn't seem to be the sum or the individual. What are the numbers on the y-axis? Yeah.
The number of interactions by month?
Right.
Oh, I see. So reactions are in response to the interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what's impression?
Impressions are how many times, well, it's not showing on this, but impressions are how many times it's actually served to someone's screen.
comes up on your screen, boom, that reads it right away. That's one.
And
That's
next
it.
slide,
You don't
please.
have to read it.
Oh. Yeah, you don't, yeah, just as long as it shows up. Okay, sorry.
In your analytics, do you, are you able to dial down and see where the participants are coming from, what their location is? I know with Facebook you can, and with, website traffic, you can tell, and, with the web being the international tool, you can get a lot of activity from Ethiopia and, upstate New York. So I'm just wondering, yeah, are they constituents from our community?
And yes, I do have the analytics for that. I didn't include it in the report, but if you'd like, I can provide that as well after the meeting. If you'd like me to send that over to Greg to send out to everyone, I certainly can do that. So you can see, we can narrow it down by city, by state, by country.
Yeah.
We can put some of this stuff on the website too, and just kind of have a running tab of our analytics that sort of have some of these KPIs within Plan for Water website if people are interested. But, this is just, these are things that we can run at any point.
It just seems that when we look at success, we want to have the community being the metric, not
Right.
Global.
That's a good point.
Right. I would say for Facebook and Instagram, it's more likely that it's local. LinkedIn, I'm gonna guess it's way more dispersed. LinkedIn is just more of a professional network, so, people that I would, like myself, would be connected with, that would then click on that could be general managers of a Southern California water district, those types of things. But they serve different purposes, right? LinkedIn isn't to reach the community. LinkedIn is for more professional connections.
Right.
Yeah.
We can certainly get that.
Yeah, we'll find it all for you.
Work on that, and we'll distribute that.
Mhm.
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, well, and the website traffic, I think, would be helpful to monitor that over time, because
Sure.
undoubtedly that is going up as well.
Yes, absolutely. And we can certainly, I can dive deeper into that and provide those metrics for you. That's no problem at all.
Thank you.
So
Of
I'm
course.
just sharing this in background with some people, but we have Penn Valley Peeps, Nevada City Peeps, or what,
Oh, yeah, Nevada County.
are we using?
What are the peeps?
Those would be,
I can tell you.
I don't even know what the peeps are. Is that another social network?
those would be,
Social network within the social network.
Facebook.
I don't know.
those would be somebody that would want to follow, and then they would push it to their network.
Right.
Yes.
So this is where it'd be helpful for the board, if you're really interested in engagement, if you're part of a PEEP, you should share.
I'm a part of the PEEP.
There's multiple
When I
PEEPs,
push my
then
stuff
you
out,
should,
it
when
goes
we,
into the
yeah.
Should
So if NID shares something and you follow us, if you push it to the PEEP group, then it'll start snowballing.
So, living with
Yeah.
someone who, to the max, higher response numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're hyper-local.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and the PEEPs are like in the, 20,000 members or something. I mean, they've got.
Oh, it's-
Does PEEP stand for something?
People.
People.
Those little yellow chicks,
Is this an acronym? I don't know.
But it's extremely effective.
Clearly not hip over
I
here.
don't know if we would necessarily want to follow the PEEPs networks, but
But
we would
pushing it
encourage
up to them.
that these get pushed to the influencers of the PEEPs organization groups, and then that gets projected to
Right.
those folks.
Hey, we're all for the
I
people.
will.
Come on,
Yes.
let's get
Okay, next slide.
I've tried to push before, but since I'm actually based in Utah, they don't want to let me be a member to share on their pages. So again, I will say, in LinkedIn, top performing posts are more data driven, the Bowman Lake precipitation versus videos on water conservation, even though those are well received. It also, again, this platform, those things matter. So sharing about the newsletters, about what's going on with lake precipitation, et cetera. Those ones are more hard hitting for LinkedIn. Next page. And again, of course, the video from YouTube, that one's very popular. But blogs are also really popular on LinkedIn. So different platforms, different popularity. Next, please. And then Google My Business. There's basically direct, indirect, and chain queries. So if they're looking for something specific, Nevada Irrigation District is direct. If they're looking for water district near me, indirect, chain, not really applicable, maybe just irrigation district. But it's great to see with Google My Business as we've added content posts, it just increases your searchability, and we're seeing a lot of traffic where where NID is showing up when people search different things. So getting a lot of good response on people seeing NID when they search for different things on Google. Next, please.
One could assume that because you show nothing for September and such a little amount for October, that we didn't start tracking Google My Business until that time. So we don't, in other words, have analytics from a year ago that would say a baseline.
I believe that's because when we first came on board with NID, that was one of the first things we did was set up. I could be mistaken, but I believe that's why. If not, it's just because, again, that there's been more. We cleaned up the profile, we added more information, we started adding posts. Those things all increased traffic.
The only social media engagement that NID had prior to November was Facebook. That's it. So since then, we've added the LinkedIn, the Instagram,
Right.
Google My Business.
But Google My Business is just isn't it an analytical tool for measuring people who are typing in Nevada Irrigation District or Irrigation District near me, whatever search engine they want to, whatever words they want to do? Isn't that, it's just tracking that?
Yeah, actually, that's Google Analytics. Google My Business is actually when you search something up on Maps or when you search something up on Google, you'll get like the businesses on the right-hand side of the screen where it'll show pictures and the address and a link to the website and posts. All of that information is through Google My Business. So, or if you're searching on, on your app, your Google Maps on your phone for something, it will show up with all that information available. They can click a link to call. They can click a link to the website. They can look at the posts. They can gather different information that way.
I believe Director Hull is referring to Google Analytics, which is the tracking methodology for how many people come to your website, what's that.
Right.
And we've got some information on that here shortly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, next slide, please.
Is all this information for the entire NID? It's not necessarily focused, was the beginning slide focused strictly on the plan for water feedback, or it's just in general?
So that's a good question, and the way that we've engaged Titanium in this is that we discussed early on, should we just have a strict plan for water focused only, small box on plan for water, everybody come here, and you're gonna learn all sorts of great things, and here's the 11 stages, and this is what plan for water is. Well, we're really confined in that one space and just plan for water. So we've built NID around it, and every single post, every single Facebook post, and every blog, everything that you see in any of these analytics has a link and a reference that join the plan for water here. And so the links are all going back to the plan for water website page. So everything that we do, whether we talk about the Easter egg hunt at Scott Flat, or the No Motor Day at Scott Flat, or the rec campsites, or the treated water activities, it is all referenced back to Plan for Water. So that's how we're capturing the whole thing. Every month, we do have direct email and direct blogs specific to the Plan for Water that is just only Plan for Water, here it is. But it's not as snazzy, you can't add photos, and you can't really put a nice video, you know, of all of us sitting here in this room, and people want to link to it. So we've created the whole NID platform, which is the social media campaign, Plan for Water. In every single ad is embedded as sort of a tagline, always go back to Plan for Water. Join us for Plan for Water. Find out more at Plan for Water. So
This widens the net.
yes.
So we have a quick question for Mr. Feldman. Mr. Feldman, you want to?
Thank you. I am unmuted, and I really appreciate this. This is a great presentation. Thank you, Carolyn. I wonder why when I go to the nidwater.com, there is no link to Facebook. There is no link to LinkedIn. There is no link to another organization or another social media that you should follow up is Nextdoor. Nextdoor is very immediate and very localized, so you can read the responses. But I just think this is a great idea. I would like to see more Plan for Water focus, but I think the idea of having tracking of NID in general is wonderful. Thank you.
That's a great point. Thank you for that. And we'll make sure that those links are embedded into the website so that, and vice versa.
Is that easy to do, Carolyn?
Yes, that's very easy to do. I'll put in a ticket after the call and we can get that set up on your website. Greg, if we want to discuss afterwards where specifically you want it, or if you just want it prominent on the footer or header, not a problem at all.
Okay.
All right.
That's a great point.
That is a good.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Feldman.
Appreciate it very much. Okay, and again, all of this, everything is driving more traffic to the website, more traffic to Plan for Water. All of our intent is to really illuminate the necessity for the Plan for Water with our drought situation, with our water supply, and how important it is to become involved. Next slide, please.
I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who is providing all the content that you're doing? Do you have someone else doing the content piece? Is that?
It's co-opted with Titanium, and Carolyn is putting together most of the written content. However, Susan is helping her, and I'm helping, and we're doing various edits. Some of the operations, different departments are putting in.
It just depends on what the actual topic is. Everybody contributes.
Yeah, specific content, but Carolyn and her team are finalizing that and packaging it up, and
That's a
doing
big job to contribute the content and then keep it current and all of that. So
yeah.
that's being accomplished in some team way, like between Titanium and.
Well, it goes through Greg's shop.
Greg's shop,
Yeah,
okay.
so it all goes through Susan and Greg's shop. As the board will recall, we reduced our part-time temporary position out in public outreach just for the purpose of having some additional monies to be able to tap in to some deeper graphic resources that we don't really have the skills on staff. So yeah, they've been great because it can kind of leverage what we already do and make it more translatable to the general public.
And then they get the input when necessary from the different departments. And so we reach out to various individuals within departments and ask for specifics about certain things. Maybe there's photographs that we don't have in a library that somebody will get, so.
And we generate a lot of different items that we are able to leverage for multiple items, right? We have the general manager newsletter, we have the pipeline. So we have kind of these things we do that we pull from as well.
You're giving away all my secrets. where I search for content. Okay, any more questions before we go to the next slide?
I don't think, Mr. Feldman, did you just leave your hand up?
Sorry.
Oh, he's down. Okay, we're good to go, move on.
Long 15 minutes. Yeah.
We've had a lot of
There's only
questions.
a couple more slides
Couple more slides. Okay, we'll get through them.
to it.
Okay, yeah, and again, just the top performing posts with Google My Business, so you can see. Google My Business does not have video presentations, so it's a little bit different, but. And then overall web traffic, and again, I'll get you those metrics, but a user is anyone who initiates a session on your website. So if someone comes, inputs, NID.com into their browser 3 different times, that's 3 different visitors, versus a new user is a visitor who's going for the very first time to the website. So both metrics are really important. We obviously we want to keep bringing in new users, new perspectives, and definitely localized as much as possible. And I know there's been some up and downs, but overall with a 5% quarter-over-quarter growth at 6 months, that goal would have been 7,000 users. So we've exceeded that by 2,000 with a month to spare. So having some great traction on the overall website. And then next slide. Oh, I see a question.
We have one question.
Can you just comment on sessions? I don't really understand that definition.
So a session is the whole time that they're on the website without going off, or without it being left dormant for a period of time. So there might be multiple sessions by different users or by users, and again, where did I put that? It's on web traffic. Am I missing part of it? Oh, yeah, on the other page. Go ahead.
Oh, I think it just might be trying to tie out the numbers. So just to clarify, Carolyn, the user is a visitor, any visitor but is not a new one. A new user is a new visitor, right? And then a session, a group of user interactions. So does that mean my interaction on multiple different pages on our website is one interaction?
Yes,
that's
and
why
I'm
the
sorry,
user versus that's why the numbers don't tie out.
Right,
and
I apologize because I misspoke on the user session of it. My brain's checking out at this point. I apologize. But no, sessions, how many times anyone has spent a period of time on the website. And I believe there was another slide, was that before or after, that showed, average time on page? That's really fantastic. Most websites have an average time on page or on website of about 30 seconds at most, so that we're getting people staying on the Plan for Water website for almost 2 minutes, a minute and a half. That's really fantastic because they're engaged, they're reading, they're consuming the content. So we do want to drive more traffic specifically to this page, and I have some ideas for that, but overall that we're keeping people on the page for so long is exciting. That's really exciting. And then next slide.
On the Plan for Water?
Oh, the Plan for Water. No, I was thinking our general.
Yeah, those metrics, Carolyn, were associated only with the Plan for Water, correct?
That second slide was, yes, for the average time on page.
Okay, great. That's better news.
So, and then the Plan for Water emails are actually being run directly through NID, but just from my experience with email campaigns, the amount of readership on each email is really impressive. So obviously the gist of the email intent is for people to at least be able to glance at them and get an idea of the content, and if they're interested, then to click in deeper or onto the website to learn information. And per constant contact, which is a CRM program, 29% is is a good average open rate. So if we can go to the next slide, you can see really how fantastic the open rates are for the Plan for Water emails. They're almost double what the average is. So, and the number of recipients, there's been a great amount of growth in there's been a lot more people who have actually started receiving the newsletter versus people who have unsubscribed. So that growth continues as far as signing up for the emails, which is also something that I try to promote in the social media.
And one of the things, just so you all know, is that our email list is not great. It's not super long. We are actively getting more and more emails, and we really started that relatively recently, a few years ago. And so customer service is doing a great job at collecting those and interacting, and we're adding those. We're not sending people spam emails. They're specific to this, and particularly if they click on, right, I want information about Plan for Water, that's when they get these emails. And so by only having, some of these 600 recipients, 600 deliveries, and then a 29% open rate is pretty fantastic considering kind of what we're talking about. It's not always we're not selling a product, right? We're not selling something that people can tangibly take home with them. But it's a good opportunity for us to get direct to customers and interested stakeholders who are interested in what we're doing. Okay.
And then this is something that is on the Plan for Water. It's a social media engagement calendar. If you're on the Plan for Water page, one of the buttons to the right will bring this up and show all the different posts and also have the links for the blog content. So it's something we update every month. Just another way to share what's going on with the Plan for Water. And then the last slide, Susan, could you speak to this one? You asked me to include, but you'd put it together, so.
No, Susan's not able to, I don't think she's online at the moment.
Okay, or great.
So this really is just sort of a high-level overview, again, of everything that we've been talking about. It's the content of the different Plan for Water materials via website, YouTube videos, social media, and looking at, again, a number of page views. And this is per our website and our email marketing campaigns that Susan in our in-house is doing specific. So.
And I think Susan just joined us. Did we forget anything, Susan? No? That's all right.
So the numbers looking better.
Yeah, we're looking good.
Overall, the numbers are growing. We're very thankful. Carolyn and her team and Susan, they're doing a great job with not a whole lot of money. And I think that, considering that we only had a Facebook page just 7 months ago, and our social media engagement is growing that much, I think it's
And we're not on Peeps.
Not yet.
But we just aren't focused on Peeps.
We're talking about on Peeps. We're not on Peeps.
We are.
Oh, you are a Peep.
I'm sure of it.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Oh, one more question?
So we have one more question.
I don't know if it's, are we gonna do a survey to see, so we're putting all this information out, are we gonna do a survey of any sort to see how it's being received and questions about the process and how they feel about how the process is going, or to try and solicit feedback on the process? People instead of just the numerics of
Yeah, so we hadn't planned on doing a survey in particular to the process, but that is the purpose of the first portion of every Plan for Water, is to check in on the process so that as, if we're missing something or people think like Mr. Feldman asked for the risk item to be included, so we included it. That is how we had the presentation from the Nisenan tribe. So it was really intended to be an agenda item at each Plan for Water meeting, where we do a process-specific check-in at the beginning, and then you'll recall at the end of each Plan for Water meeting, I also request the same thing. We were not going to do a process survey, but we are planning on doing some additional surveying for the strategic planning portion of the Plan for Water process.
Great, great. Brad?
Missing my generation,
That's right.
I just have a comment. How many times can I speak before I get a restraining order?
I'm facilitating, so you're good. You're good.
So it's just, it was a great presentation. I'm impressed with the amount of resources that you're expending on, engagement and trying to get more engagement. I just want to remind board and staff that the core of this district has been engaged for over 100 years. The clients have been engaged for over 100 years. And it's interesting that you're going out and you're chasing the periphery who's never been engaged, and they won't be engaged again in 50 years. So the heart of this district has always been engaged. And I just want to remind you.
Yeah.
So you are chasing the periphery. When you're chasing all this stuff, it's people that are going to be here for 6 months, and they're going to come and wear a fish hat and talk, and then in a year, we're not going to see them again. But there is a class here that will always be engaged with this district.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point that Mr. Fowler makes, in that you often hear elected bodies, we want more people, we're not reaching enough people. Well, the reality of it is that public agencies, specifically ones that have been here for 100 years, we are very easy to find. Our meetings are on set days. They're always at the same time. So we are accessible. The level of engagement depends on the topic at hand, and unfortunately, most public agencies don't usually get a lot of engagement on things that you may think are interesting. It's more when they will impact people. We're not necessarily here for fun, right? So it's more when you're going to impact them at a specific point is when they want to be engaged. So I would never discount the number of people that have been participating, because in my experience as a public agency staff member, we've had great engagement on the Plan for Water, and I was actually completely shocked by it. Usually don't see that many people unless they're really mad. So I think it says that you're doing a good job, and it has gone down over time, but that's okay. We organize this process to be the kind of meet you where you're at process. And so, some agriculture folks, may say, okay, well, that wasn't really the meeting I wanted to go to, because it's not providing maybe some of the information I thought that would move the needle for what I'm concerned about. But maybe I care when they are talking about supply needs or how they're going to address future supply and demand. And so, we have to remember, it's designed for people to pop in and pop out, because it's not going to be interesting to everybody.
Right. Right, and Brad, I want to just follow up on your comment, and I hear you and I agree, and yet, in the last 3 weeks, I've spoken to 3 different groups, each, I would say 350 people, 400 people in all of the groups combined. And very few of those folks they go, drought? Really? Yeah. What do you mean, drought? And what is that? What do I do about that? And how does it impact me? And so I do find a real value in outreach, because it really helps bring people, to educate people, because we're going to be making and facing some really hard decisions here in the next couple of years. And the more people that are engaged, even if it's only for 4 months or 6 months, those are all customers, no matter what. They may not be the heart as you define them, but they're still customers, and I think that there is a value to that. So.
Obviously, you see a value.
I do.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, wait, one more.
Yeah, since we're closing this up, my name is Carl McCosker. I run brush busting boars. I do targeted grazing in the county now. I grew up here. I went through the 70s drought here, and can remember that. Part of the reason I'm here is because I want to make sure another industry does, because it was the timber industry that was destroyed in the 70s and 80s by environmentalism, and I want to make sure agriculture isn't destroyed in the process. So I got a degree in sustainable agriculture from Sarah College, and what I want to let the board know is that we are on a brink here of sustainable agriculture and having a future for sustainable agriculture that could be significant in this county, because we're rich in two things here, rocks and water. And by having it, when we are experiencing a change through farmers markets and food, a desire for regional food, and also supply chain problems that are popping up in both livestock and in foodstuffs. And it is just going to get worse. I don't know if everyone else has seen the cracks in civilization. The wind blows and the power goes out. Not being able to go to the store and get the things you need, waiting 6 months for something to come. But we are having some real changes. And I want to remind the board to keep in mind its first priority and the reason it was originally formed, which was agriculture. And I actually think there's a great tool here, but I was looking at the totality of the slide, and 1 out of 6 or 7 of them were agricultural related. And so I would hope that as this new tool goes on, that we would start, maybe we can start getting some interfacing with Farm Bureau and let you know of all the different sustainable ag operations and livestock operations that are going on in this county and use this water, both on the environmental level of the habitats that they're maintaining, and also the practical level of the food that they're producing for people that live here.
Great comments. All right, is there any other comment before we move on from this particular item? Yeah, welcome the new participation. Good voices. We haven't really heard a whole lot throughout this process yet. All right, so we're going to move on to the next item, and that is the proposal for the plan for water for the strategic planning. So as the board will recall, at the last meeting, the board asked that we provide an overview of what the strategic planning proposal will be. So the strategic planning process, although it's incorporated into the stages of the plan for water, it's not intended to be, stuck with the plan for water. So it will be basically a standalone document that would then be updated on an annual basis by the board as we go through the annual budgeting process. It's really important that the strategic plan be either affirmed, heard, and or modified on an annual basis to ensure that projects that staff proposes, as well as the budgets that staff propose, and the annual budget and just our general operations are in line with the board's strategic priorities.
So you said annual basis, is that industry standard or good business practice?
It's a good business practice and almost, yeah.
We haven't reviewed it since we wrote all this in 2009.
Most, as part of annual budgeting, almost every agency, before they initiate annual budgeting on an annual basis, they reaffirm the strategic priorities and the mission and vision with the board or council, whoever it is. And that's because you can easily get off track with an annual budget and meeting your strategic priorities just by adopting a budget that is not in line with them. And so you want to always make sure, especially as the board turns and new members come on, that everybody's on board and we're all consistently kind of driving down the road together, as opposed to staff doing one thing and the capital program's doing something else. And then, then you get very disjointed and you're not going to meet any goal.
So I agree that CIP, the budget should adhere to the strategic plan. Changing it every year kind of makes it more political.
It's not necessarily.
I'd like it to be more of a core principle of the district, at least for 5 years, that we could work on.
My recommendation is that you rehear it every year. I don't typically see boards or councils completely change it. Usually one of two things happens. It's just reaffirmed, but it's everybody's restated commitment to what the mission, vision, and strategic priorities are.
Get it out and read it.
you need to get it out and read it and talk about it and hear from your constituents and talk about it. It doesn't necessarily, you're not gonna go through an involved process every year. So that's more on every 5-year cycle. Usually what I've seen, it happens more on about a 4-year cycle because then you've had 2 elections occur. But I would definitely highly recommend that it is at least talked about once a year and reaffirmed. In my past experience, a lot of times you'll see a new priority get identified due to something new that happens. Yeah, some new information or new political environment or just a new priority comes up.
So we're looking for direction from the board about the process.
Yeah, we're not here to strategic plan right now, yeah.
That's what I said, so,
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I think, very good.
That's gotta be a much longer meeting.
Yeah, it's intended to be multi-meetings, it is, multi-phased. You know, one of the other issues I think, Rich, you need to consider is that, your term only lasts for 4 years. It is very difficult for existing sitting boards to bind future boards to anything. And so I do recommend you hear on an annual basis. It could be as quick as, what does everybody think? We all still agree with these 5 priorities? Yes, 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 so far.
And yet, I'm, as a consumer and an agricultural one, I need to know that I'm getting provided a dependable water supply, or else I'm not going to be in business. I'm not even going to spend the money here to go into business and build a business that depends on this water if I can't depend on a dependable water supply. So I'm saying that for me as an agriculturalist, I need a longer-term commitment from this district that this strategic plan doesn't get flipped.
Well, I think that with any business, a business can certainly move directions off of North Needle very quickly, and reaffirmation on an annual basis is better than not talking about it, especially when you're talking about an elected body.
I'm not talking about it. What I have a problem is that having it flipped that, okay, now I don't have a dependable supply, yet I invested in hundreds of thousands.
I can't imagine this board at NID ever saying, we kind of don't care about a dependable water supply. I mean,
I understand that.
having a dependable water supply has been, you know, the keystone to what this agency has done
For
and
100
provided
years.
for 100 years.
And I think
that will go on for the next 100.
Yeah, also you need to look at it in the context, you also need to look at it in the context of legal environment in which we exist. So we are an irrigation district through the water code, and based off of that, we have a very specific reason why we're here and we're not here. In addition, from Prop 218, we are not able to charge farmers or treated water ratepayers for a cost to provide service for service we're not providing. That would be illegal. So from some sense, there is kind of a box around what we do. If we decided today we're not gonna provide water anymore, we have an issue, right?
Yeah, right.
We can't no longer charge Brad, and then you can't pay us, and then no one's here in the building, and then the whole thing falls apart.
And how does that play with the homesteaders and the ranchettes?
It's all the same thing.
Exactly. Thank you.
I have a comment. It seems like the way the strategic planning would be is that the mission and vision, like the fundamental, we're gonna provide a dependable, that's not our mission. But the things that we would need to check in every year would be the goals and the strategies and how we're going to accomplish that, because that really defines the work.
Yeah.
And you said
And the path that
exactly what I
staff.
was-
Yeah, you're right,
I'm
Laura.
good with that.
Yeah,
And that, I believe that's what.
Yes, and you're exactly right. So traditionally, you don't see everybody re-wordsmithing the mission and vision. What it is are we still committed to our mission? Are we all still committed to our vision where we want to be in the future? And then let's talk about the strategic priorities.
how we get there.
Yeah.
And the priorities can shift around depending on.
Yeah, we're boxed in from a legal perspective on what our mission is. We can't decide today we're going to,
Reaffirming our mission, 15-minute meeting?
they should be.
Yeah, I do too.
Yes.
But every 5 years, you could do a wholesale,
Mm-hmm.
but then in the interim off years, just make sure you're still on track to where you want to go.
Right.
So one of the reasons, if I can, really fast, one of the reasons why the strategic plan is put inside this plan for water process is to, once we've finalized this plan for water process, we have a database right? That is intended to be updated often. And if that database is updated often enough and it changes, perhaps a priority is going to change within the district, right? And so I think getting to this point, it really they go hand in hand in a way. The final deliverable of this whole 24-month process that we're embarking upon can help inform the strategic priorities of the district on an annual or every 3 years basis, however that is going to be defined.
For example, it's very helpful, specifically in budgeting and operations. So, for example, today, Greg and I were talking about the previous policies that allowed for donations. While our mission is to provide, currently our mission is to provide a dependable, safe, sustainable, and resilient water supply, recognizing that power generation and recreation are critical components of our operation. So if we got a donation request for the senior center to buy new board games, right? That's where I say, that's not what aligns. Does not fit with why we're legally here, what your stated mission is. And it's also a way for the board to collectively guide yourself, right? In absence of revisiting it, you don't talk about it, and then you don't accomplish it.
More of hit the nail around the head for me. I was going to go there with the goals part. We don't have goals, we have values, okay? I learned mission, vision, and goals are tactical, strategic, and technical. I would really, I really think that the goals aligning with the budget, that would be where we will with them each year.
It more or less, yes, but you need to, it's kind of like saying, okay, we're a basketball team, we're going to win the NBA championship this year. We're committed to this, put your hands in, right? That's our mission. Our goal is, we're going to
Get Steph Curry.
We're going to get Steph Curry.
Yeah.
We're going to get a new sixth man who plays basketball really well. We're going to do all these things. But so I just want to touch on this really quick. So what I've shown here is what we currently have. This isn't intended to say, yes, we should do that, or no, we shouldn't. I just knew we were going to get the question, whether it be from the board or from the public, what is our current mission, vision, and values? The mission statement is, who are we? The vision statement is, where do we want to be into the future? Where are we going? What are we doing? In values, these are written kind of a little bit off from the normal values I'm used to seeing. Values are, how do we operate ourselves? What are the kind of morals and considerations from professional consideration, or for how we engage with the community, how we are going to act, right? So moving into our new strategic planning process, you always want to know what you currently have, just so you can gauge kind of where you're at, and has it been really working or not working. There are some current goals. They're not what I would consider, in my world, you have the vision, mission, and then kind of your values that are more fluffy guiding principles that we have. And then we develop strategic priorities. So these are the board's priorities for the upcoming year, in which, from operational budget perspective, policy perspective, we will be moving and operating to support and meet. Then you come up with specific district goals that follow under each strategic priority that then tier into the budget.
Right.
It was a little bit all intertwined before, so I'm hoping this time around we can pull it apart.
Yep.
And so we are going to be starting with a conversation about determining our current strategic position. And this has to do a little bit with looking at where we're at in comparison to what was already adopted. Was it working, was it not? I'm not recommending that you use that and wordsmith it. I don't think that's a good idea. I think we need to start over, but okay, this is what we have. And then we'll kind of look at our current strategic plan, go, was it working? Have we met all those goals? Probably not. It wasn't, I think all tentatively agreed to be redone. And then we're going to go through what's referred to as the environmental scan. So we're going to dive into more of the data historical data, whether it be from a revenue perspective, customer perspective, from an employee perspective, employee retention, all of those types of things that will help you give more data to what is important, how we're currently doing in comparison to year over year and or other like agencies. Because I think that there are some interesting metrics that will help the board and the public better understand our strategic position when you start slicing and dicing information, for example, dollars of revenue per customer or number of staff per customer or, all of those. It just helps you figure out how you're doing. Once we get done with that, then we'll go back through the traditional SWOT analysis. So I do know there was a lot of effort done on this before. So the idea this time around is to request from all of our stakeholder groups, whether it be one of the NGOs, or it could be a local homeowners association, or an agricultural group, to provide them the opportunity where they can do their own SWOT analysis of the district, and then come present that SWOT analysis to the board. Now remember, this isn't...
So, for folks who are listening, could you define SWOT analysis?
Sure, absolutely. So a SWOT is just where you identify your strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities. And so your strengths and weaknesses are kind of your internal considerations, and then your threats and opportunities are your external considerations. And so it's important to get a lot of different viewpoints on that, because what you often see agencies do, and I think what occurred last time, is you'll see staff usually do one for each department, and then kind of, one director, one staff member, and a couple of members of public will work on one SWOT area, and then you kind of combine them. I just think a lot of that work was done before, and so it's not necessary to revisit it since the last effort wasn't that long ago. I think what would be more interesting and more informative is to have SWOTs completed by individual groups, because they all have a completely different perspective of what we're doing well and not doing well, and what the future holds. So after we get completed with that, we'll have the public present their particular SWOTs to the board, and then once that effort is done, then we will start working on synthesizing one district SWOT that the board will adopt, right? This isn't up for public vote. This is a board actual decision, but you can't make the decision in a vacuum. You have to do it with public input and, a variety of public input. You want a good variety, just like I said earlier, to understand where your actual challenges are.
When do we want the community SWOT analysis?
I'll deal with that part, and I'll be reaching out to them directly.
Should we? We have communities, constituents that would like to input.
And just give me a list of them, and then we'll reach right out to them. So we're trying to reach out to like groups so that we can keep this somewhat manageable. It's not realistic to have 40,000 people each come and give a SWOT.
But you're going to be you can handle the.
Yep,
good.
Yep.
Okay.
So with the general, one thing we're really good at is we're really good at reaching out to stakeholders and specific identified stakeholder groups. We don't all so often reach out to just regular customers who aren't represented by some larger entity.
Exactly.
And the biggest customer that we don't reach out to, and there's the most of them, is the treated water customer. So in the absence of being able to reach out to them in a more reasonable way, we're going to do some more pointed surveying with them, because it's not likely we're going to get any groups of treated water customers, maybe outside the chambers, but not just the general residents. Some of it, yeah.
You got Lakewood, you got Alta Sierra, you got Lake of the Pines.
And we're going to reach out to all of them, but we're also going to provide the general public treated water customer can fill out a more general survey, which I think will be informative.
The district would not be included, or would?
No, so stakeholders are also included, because it's important to understand where we're falling short when we want to get large projects accomplished. So it's not a bad idea to understand even an out-of-district stakeholder, say a non-governmental agency or an environmental group, what they think about us, because that can help us navigate the future no matter what it holds. Because we do have to coordinate with stakeholders that are maybe not customers for FERC relicensing, all of our environmental permitting, for our consultations. And so it's not a bad idea to know what they think. But, and that's what brings it back to is, you know, ultimately the board is the decision maker on, once we synthesize all this information into strategic priorities. Because frankly, you've been elected to these positions and you represent your constituency. And you also have to be, you know, you're the ones who are ultimately accountable for the directions that the district goes in.
So when do you want our list?
I will ask for them.
She will let us know.
Yeah, I just want to roll this out in an organized manner so I don't get a bunch of lists written. Rich will give me, he will give me 5 phone numbers he recites off the top of his head and 4 names right now. But I promise you, we will get to you and ask for them.
Discussion about the
process.
This is just the process.
We want a time frame because we're getting into it in July.
Yeah, we will get it all out. First, I want to just get the input, and then we will roll this out in an organized fashion so we don't miss anybody.
Don't blink.
And I want to make sure your phone numbers you rattle off the top of your head are correct. I don't want to write them down. Okay, so after we do the SWOT presentations, as I said, we'll work together with public input, with staff input, and to synthesize one final SWOT that will then tier into the development of the vision statement, mission statement, our values. You know, we haven't spent a lot of time on values. These are really what are the guiding principles that make us a good organization and will make us successful moving into the future. And success is defined a variety of ways, but, you know, in this context, success is also what supports our mission, right? And then we'll go into strategic priorities, and so those will be all tiered off of the work we previously did.
Laura had a question.
Good job.
I had a question. I mean, I just had a comment. On the December 19th, or December 9th, 2019 workshop, they presented the summary in 2018, December 1st and December 10th, they had community workshops. They were very, very well attended, and there was all these sticky notes all over the walls.
I do remember this.
And they summarized it, and they put, you know, they put it into themes of things that were important to a very broad range of our customers. They did. And I'd like to have it in this, you know, when we start, I don't know where it would fit in.
Like in the environmental scan area?
Environmental scan, but bring that back out, because there was a lot of work and there was a lot of people that came, and it kind of just got lost.
Really great participation.
Why don't we bring that when we review the previous effort, so it's in that same phase during the environmental scan, and we can just review that information so it's fresh. We can.
At least the, you know, the high input, because they actually put every single sticky note and where people start with, and then on the very first page, the themes generated were really good that we should keep in mind as we.
Yeah, and there was a lot of valuable input.
Really
that came
good.
from there. Yeah.
Okay, we can for sure do that. Anything else? Any public?
I have a comment. Having done a lot of strategic planning, I really appreciate the rigor of this approach. I followed the process that was 2018-19 and was sorely disappointed by the lack of underlying information, data, facts that would support a rigorous analytical process that is the underpinning of any successful strategic planning effort and the underpinning for the quality of output. So I really appreciate the rigor that you're bringing to this, and I think we will be, the collective we, those on the call, those who are not on the call, those in the board, the management team, will have, I think we'll have a product that we can all be proud of, that really, I think it goes to Rich's point. We want an output that helps direct the district for the coming 50 years. So, the other just clarification is talking about the various roles and stakeholders, NID management, and the board. And I think you alluded to it, that the stakeholder role is to provide input and influence our thinking. The role of NID management is similarly, we rely on you for the data and the information, and ultimately the decision lies with the board.
Definitely. Definitely. All right. Do we have any members of the public that have any questions? Not seeing anyone. Raise your hand. Any? Would you guys like to say anything?
No, I just want to thank Director Peters for reminding me of another planning process that I wasted hours and hours on. And prior to that, I'm sure there's several more. I'm trying to count in my mind now how many focus groups and targeted things I've done with this agency. And the countless hours that I have spent wasting my time. And I'm really hopeful that this is not the case, because here I am again.
This will be the one.
Thank you, Director Peters. That was only 4 years ago, and I'm thinking back a dozen years probably. And...
Well, I want to echo.
But this is the one.
This is the one, Brad.
Got it. Outstanding.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it is extremely frustrating when you participate in something and then it doesn't either get finished or it's not used, and so it's extremely important we keep on track. We're gonna get finished, so, you know,
We are going to do this.
we are, and, you know, it's very persistent, so
Take it to the bank.
Yes.
we'll get it done.
Just remind everyone of the other elements that you have in your mind that will be completed, such as the hydroelectric kind of strategic plan. I mean, you have a broader umbrella that I think we just need to remind people of, that the plan for water is one leg, strategic planning is a leg, but there are other legs as well.
Yes. And that's a valid point. I think people think something magical comes out of the plan for water. So the biggest benefit of the plan for water is twofold, is it allows us to go through an analysis of the supply and demand needs for the planning horizon, right, which is a long-term planning period. What I think is probably even more important, because we don't know what we don't know, and with climate change, we really don't know what we don't know, is that it's going to enable us to develop a water model which will be able to be modified as what we don't know becomes clearer as climate change becomes more studied and more understanding, because it's also very location specific. And so for me, the biggest benefit is having this tool that we then, if we are diligent about updating it, can constantly inform the decisions that we're making moving forward about supply and demand and what we need and what our future needs are. The second part of the plan for water process is that it's going to allow us to go through a series of strategies and evaluate them based off of technical feasibility, fiscal feasibility, political feasibility, data, and kind of rank them as far as, okay, we need, 100,000 acres of water storage, or maybe the numbers come out and they say we need 5,000 acres of water storage. Well, those are two totally different numbers, that there's a lot of different solutions you can utilize to get to both of those metrics. And it's not really a one-size-fits-all solution, but it's going to tee us up to be able to talk about it, to look at the entire suite of solutions so that we can start planning for them. Because there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer. Even if the number is really big, it's not, you can't just build more storage immediately and that solves all your issues. You still have a lot of different things that you need to address and implement. For example, watershed health. If you don't take care of your watershed, it's not going to take care of you, right? You have to have a healthy watershed. So there's a lot of things we need to plan for. So the idea is that after the plan for water and we get a sense of what the actual demand and supply numbers likely are going to be, and then we will start tearing into actual master planning for raw water, treated water for watershed, and then operations. And there's also a lot we can do with the operations of the system. And those are the four kind of legs of the stool that will collectively get us into the future. You cannot just build storage. If you forget about your treated water, for example, you're going to be in a world of hurt in 20 years when all of our water mains are blowing up, right? So there's a lot of different things we have to take into consideration, and this process is basically designed so that we don't lose focus of all of them.
Thank you. That's good.
Well,
That's good, Rich.
We're ready to move on,
All right.
I like to say, right?
Move along.
we are, but we heard it yesterday. And so the watershed to me means all, what, 70,000 acres, 270,000 acres?
287,000.
Yeah, I mean, everything. All the water we apply on our ranches, farms, all the water that runs through them into the watershed, into the drain. Just include everything. But I heard yesterday that the state doesn't really count the water on ranches and farms in terms of
Environmental.
wild, yeah.
No, I think that we're conflating a couple of issues. It depends on what you're talking about. Our specific conversation with whether or not water on farms is able to count for a habitat project under a voluntary agreement are totally.
It's a really different question.
Yeah, it's a totally different question.
Yeah, but I think that's selective, arbitrary decision on somebody when we do have world-class habitat on our farms and ranches.
Yeah, I'm not saying we don't. I think from the conversations we were having were related to voluntary agreements. I just think we're conflating it for the purposes of Plan for Water.
But under this, we're going to count all the.
Yeah, absolutely. So under watershed management, you can talk about, when management is in the future, not having as much impervious surface, right? Protecting,
It
right.
all works together.
Yeah. That's why the process is designed the way it is.
Had to get it out.
All right, anybody before we move on? Okay. Going on, so we have 30 minutes to get to our last item, so we're gonna do a little bit of a time check. Do we want to start the risk presentation now? Because I can imagine this is going to go for a long time.
And I really need to go at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
I will miss you.
Well,
We can get through a handful of slides.
If you want to.
Well, if we're gonna schedule another meeting anyways, it's up to the board's desire. I would probably,
I think we should start and get through some of it.
Yeah, sure, we can.
okay, so you have a hard start up to 6. Okay. Any members of the public have any questions before we move on? All right, so we're gonna go into the risk item. Greg is gonna take the lead on it. As you recall, the risk item was to assist the board as well as the public with better understanding what risks lie in front of us. So we have many very big dollar risks that may hit, some that have a high likelihood, some have a low likelihood. We have a lot of financial things coming in the future, and all these things need to be kept in mind as we go through the strategic planning process. Because so for example, if the board decided we're never gonna do capital replacement again, we just don't think it's important. Right, so then I would have to say, from a professional perspective, I would not recommend that you do that because of these ideas, or these reasons. So this is why we wanted to go through risk, so you could better understand some of the things that are facing us. Do you wanna start?
Sure. Okay, so I want to start off with just a couple quick caveats to this conversation. And number one is, we've added a few new slides today. After conversations with a couple board members, it was clear that we want to focus some of the slides, instead of having just esoteric, random, big picture things, it was a little more focused about different activities and specific items of risk that the district faces. And so we added 5 or 6 slides. Rearranged a couple of them too. So at home, if you're looking, they're a little different as you're flipping through, if you're looking at the online PDF, as opposed to what you're looking at today on your screen.
I assume they're not in our packet.
Correct. But they will be on the website. And then I think the other thing I wanted to give notice to everybody is that this is certainly in no way a comprehensive list or a comprehensive overview of every single risk that is attributed to the district, to its operations, its exterior influences, the greater world around us. Those bookends are massive. And there was just no way that we could take a 30-minute presentation and put it into a package, even a 2-hour presentation and put it into a package. So the point of this meeting, at least I think for staff's perspective, and it's nice that we'll have this break, that I can hear if we want more information, because we can come back in
Mhm.
3 or 4 weeks and do. But it is a comprehensive, I mean, a look at a risk really entails analytics, it entails financial overview, it entails, you know, everything from probability to various levels of threat. And that is not what this is. So I just want to kind of set that stage for the people at home, for the folks in the audience. Nor is it really a way that we wanted to identify risk to any particular industry or any particular constituent within our community. It really is looking at risk to NID, right? So with that sort of high-level caveat, we'll get into it, and you'll kind of understand as we move through how we jumped into it.
Greg, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I also have another high-level comment that I noticed in all of these, that where we didn't go was to explore how we mitigate any of these risks. So we said, oh, here are a whole bunch of risks. What are we going to do about it? And
So
is
that's
that just
the last
another,
slide.
that's another part?
That is the last slide.
It is?
It is an element of the last slide.
Okay.
Most of that is accomplished through actual targeted projects through the master
That's
planning
right,
effort.
master
Yeah.
plan, right.
And so there's a, you know, as there is a different, you know, there's a tons of different ways to address future supply needs. There are tons of different ways to
Yeah,
address risk as well. And at this level of a presentation, it would be impossible to do the background due diligence to come up with any proposed solution.
Understood, but I really, my comment was more for those who are listening, that
Mhm.
this risk analysis, so to speak, is more generalized as opposed to, here's the risk, here's our proposal for how.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to say. This is not about, this is a specific risk, and this is how we've analyzed, and this is the probability, and this is the financial cost
Yeah.
that could arise, here's the breadth of what would happen, and this is who it would affect, and et cetera, et cetera. But to your point, Director Heck, there are a list of plans that NID develops and has just developed over the years, and so there is a list of those in the back on the last slide, as well as some other actions and mitigation activities that we do, training, et cetera, that are just identified. Again, it is not intended to be comprehensive. It is intended to be a snapshot of some of the activities to get the juices flowing as we enter the strategic planning process.
Did you say you're gonna rank this as a high risk, low risk, medium risk? Are you gonna?
No. Some of the slides, you'll see kind of how that goes.
We did generally, and so, but we can't, if the board wants to spend another meeting on this, we can certainly bring that information back and say what the likelihood of a risk is actually of happening, and provide some additional metrics towards it.
I would think in the strategic planning portion, it would be good to be able to evaluate probability of certain risks, because that would then translate to a capital project, budget item.
So I can say that in the new slides that we have, there is just high, low, medium probability.
Oh, okay.
Let's get through it, and then if you want, because we did add some slides based off of some feedback we also received. So if you would like more when we get done, we can certainly do that. But let me read a comment from the public really quick. This is from Molly Nakahara from Sierra Harvest. Do the future water needs and risk projections take into account growth in the region's agricultural section? In order to meet just 20% of the food needs of Nevada County residents, we need to increase our cropland from 88 acres to over 1,500 cultivated acres and quadruple the current production on our rangeland. Farmers are very efficient water users, so it is likely that we can increase yields and water efficiency simultaneously. I can't ever say that word. It's not going to come out. Together. Thanks, NID, for all you use. No, it's a good comment.
Yeah, that was a good.
Yeah, for sure.
And the quick answer to that is no. We did not get into the analytics of something to that degree of specificity.
Yes, some of these major analytics wouldn't be done till the master planning stage. Some things we know because we can tier them off of previously completed hazard mitigation plans that are completed by the county, through CAN's work with Division of Dam Safety, some of those things. Some of the other ones, we have to put some more thought in, specifically on either service disruptions or costs for repairing or addressing the risk. But we did try to come up with a metric of order of magnitude that we're talking about.
Thank you.
Okay, so what is risk to NID? It comes in many different forms. The four sort of pillars, the four sort of pillars that we have in this presentation are really around business and operations. Just general NID business and operations. The regulatory environment of which we work from all of our service territories, which includes our water delivery, treated and raw, our hydroelectric and our recreation departments, as well as other state and federal regulatory agencies that we must work under. Environmental and natural events. So the broad activities from an environmental perspective that we have very little control over, yet they pose risk to our activities and our services on a daily basis and yearly basis. And then underpinning all of these three pillars is really the financial. So each financial clearly is subject to each one of these different risks. And each one of those comes in many different forms at any given point of the day, at any given day of the year, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is why, as we started to think about when Mr. Feldman graciously announced we should talk about risk, was what does it mean? How can we talk about it in a way that's beneficial to the board at this particular point in time for strategic planning and moving the ball forward on our plan for water process versus digging into a particular process and looking at our capital improvement plan and looking at what is the strategy and the priority of identifying the right way to prioritize projects and money expansion out the door. So this is just an indication that this comes in many different forms. Yes, sir.
So under business operation be the community perception of NID, and would that be kind of brought out in the SWOT process?
It certainly could be. Yeah. Not a bullet point.
A threat also, a risk. That
Community perception.
Great community support, or if we're doing something wrong, we don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. That's one of the many different forms. I mean, that's why the bookends on this are so broad, and I'm not going to touch,
Right.
Brad, we're not gonna hit all your points, okay?
I can hit all.
But we're gonna try, okay. So this is just a bit brief overview, right? So why do we care about risk? What's the point, right? Why should we care? Any business must care about risk. And so in our particular industry, risk is, like I say, massive in every way. Because we are, number one, so large in geographic size, we have so many different facets of our organization where there is any number of things that can go wrong at any given time of the day. And given our charter as an irrigation district and as a treated water delivery for health and safety, we must act. And given the fact that we have dams and DSOD and all of that activity there, developing electricity, we must act and we must be there. So our water services, over 19,000 connections, 5,500 raw water connections count on us daily. Over 100,000 people daily count on this district to give them their water for life, whether they're growing crops, whether they're growing feed, whether they're growing their children and feeding them water out of the tap. Our hydroelectric service is 82 megawatt hours, enough to power 60,000 homes. That is a massive undertaking. We don't, we have, and they're spread out over 7 hydroelectric plants, right? And so we're not consolidated like some of our other sister agencies. They're spread out and they're relatively small and they take a lot of energy and they take a lot of work and they can go wrong at any particular given time of the day, night. Typically, it'll happen on a holiday evening at 10 o'clock at night, right? And we got to call out a crew. Our recreation services, we have reservoirs throughout the area that we have to man, and we are mandated to provide services to the public. Therefore, we bring in over 300,000 visitors a year to these sites. those visitors need to feel safe, they need to feel secure. They need to, you know, they need to make sure that the trees and the systems that are there are operational and functional, and that we're not putting anyone in harm's way because they're on our property and we're taking care of them. So, this is just a sentence out of the 2021 Placer County Local Hazard Mitigation Plan, and I'll just read it really quickly. And it's one of the definitions about risk. Any facility, including infrastructure, property, equipment, or service that, if adversely affected during a hazard event, may result in severe consequences to public health and safety or interrupt essential services and operations for the community at any time. That is just sort of the breadth of the work that, you know, the employees of NID are committed to deliver. And we have to look at that on a daily basis. We looked at this map before. This is just, I put it in here just to give, again, just a breadth of context, and it's a caricature of the district's territory. It's the 287,000 acres to the south west of the screen that we're looking at, and then it's the 70,000 acres to the northeast. And that is our sphere of influence. The sphere of influence is the bottom left, and our area of influence is the area above. And it's just really, I just wanted to bring this back and re-highlight the great presentations that Chip made earlier, that we talked about our water rights earlier, that we talked about the watershed earlier. So this just brings kind of all that back into perspective, that everything we're talking about today is affected in this area and throughout this area, and we have to be there, and we have to be looking at it, again, 365, 24 hours a day. So just another high-level overview. Treatment, we've got 6 water treatment plants. They provide health and safety to all of our 19,000+ treated water customer accounts. Conveyance, 500 miles of canal. These are numbers everybody knows. I just wanted to reiterate. 400 miles of treated water pipeline that we must ensure are working on a daily basis. Generation, 7 powerhouses. We have hundreds of buildings and facilities that we must maintain and keep up and make sure that they're operating. They can be anything, and I call a facility anything from a pump station to a water tank to a campground bathroom, right? And so those are things that we must ensure are updated and kept up. LEAT is an interesting one that I think we talk about sometimes here at the district, but with new regulations, it's becoming, it is a large dollar amount that this district manages and operates within, and it can be a very large dollar amount if we have to do anything with it and adjust it.
Yeah, one of the challenges that a lot of agencies experience, and specifically NID, is that, for example, many of the water treatment plants and the powerhouses were built relatively around the same time. So just like in your home, if you buy all of your appliances at the same time, they tend to all go out at the same time. And so because of the amount of infrastructure that a district the size of NID has, it's imperative that we do capital replacement on a very routine basis. You know, you'll often hear the public complain, why is NID buying trucks every single year? Well, if you're not replacing your fleet or your infrastructure and addressing it on a regular basis, then it all comes due at once and the price tag is really, really high. And you can find yourself getting priced into a really bad situation with service disruptions because you simply can't afford the capital replacement. And so capital replacement is one of those things where, you know, we can, if a water main, you know, blows up and we have a huge leak, okay, well, maybe it will be limited on the number of people that it takes out of service, and the cost is going to be relatively small to repair it. But when you start having 80 or 90 of those in any given year, because you haven't been doing capital replacement, the average age of your system is all becoming older and older and older together, then it's very, very costly, causes a lot of service disruptions, and is more costly to the ratepayer at any specific time than averaging it over a longer period of time. And so this is one of the concerns. It's one of those things that it's not like a wildfire where it's so alarming because it's happening today and you can see it burning down before your eyes. It is burning down. It's a slow smolder, and so it is important that this be taken into consideration.
Yep.
So, just time check, we got 15 minutes. I got a couple more slides I think we can go through, and then have a good spot that we can stop.
Okay.
This reflects the risk to public safety in general I alluded to earlier. In particular, these 4 big bullet points, water quality, health and safety. We're mandated to ensure that over, these 100,000 people, whether they're treated water customers or whether they're irrigation customers, treated water certainly has a higher bar of water quality and health and safety. However, ag and irrigation customers are always reliant upon their water when it should be there. That's sort of that slide. Recreational visitation, again, it kind of comes back to this public safety of over 300,000 annual recreational visitors. These people are coming to our facilities. They are expecting areas to be safe and clean and happy and nice. And we are stewards for their enjoyment. And we have to ensure their public safety while they're at our sites. And that comes at a huge risk and a big cost on an annual basis. Dam safety is one of the, largest high-risk elements that this district has. And, we've got the Division of Safety of Dams and FERC to oversee that for us and help us, and we've got incredible staff to ensure that things are rolling well. But we have 15 dams that are classified anywhere from high to low risk. Many are high risk. And the definition, and Kian, correct me if I'm wrong, of a high-risk dam is not the integrity of the dam itself. It is the population within the inundation area below that dam should it burst.
Right.
Is that fair?
Yeah, it's about downstream risk, not condition of the facility.
Okay.
How
And-
high risk do we have?
Scotch Flat.
Yeah, and you have to remember, dams, this is one of those areas where dams are very heavily regulated, and as such, they're very heavily inspected. It's not likely that we're gonna see a huge dam failure, right? Because of that. I don't wanna get everybody alarmed.
Right. This isn't intended to say that we have high-risk dams and therefore we are gonna be, we have a really big problem. It is clearly just the classification system that is placed on every single dam in the country by FERC, and then in California with DSOD, has a risk factor to it. It just does.
But what this also means is that dams are very expensive to build, and they're very expensive to do major repairs for. So, for example, Scott's Flat Spillway, which we are being required to repair, that's a really expensive project. By the time it goes out to construction, you're talking upwards of $20 million. And so, we have to, once we get through all of the plan for water process, and then we really start tearing into those capital master plans, and then we'll start aligning when things are coming due and how revenue is coming in, and the picture will become clearer and clearer. But what this means is we really have to keep our eye on the ball when we're doing strategic planning and setting strategic priorities. Because, we could make a priority that says we want to expand campgrounds all over any district property. Well, okay, you could do that, right? But you're taking away money from dam safety projects. You're taking away money from improving canals, having more efficient canals. You're taking away money from water main replacement that we're not doing at a quick clip right now. And we have all these applications coming due. So that's the biggest reason why I want to bring this to everyone's attention now, is so when we get into strategic priorities, we're well focused, because there are a lot of high dollar obligations coming to the district in the very near future. Yeah.
And then the other piece here is just the forested lands, and it really kind of ties back to the recreational visitation. But clearly, we're doing a lot of work in order to reduce the other environmental sort of catastrophic consideration of wildfire. So, but the risk is if we don't do it, you know, we're in bad trouble. This slide I threw in here, in large effect because it, you know, it underpins so much of what we do, and yet it's hidden and secret in a way. But if it's not secure and it's not invested in and it's not taken care of, then we run the risk. And we had an attempt. We have over 10,000, probably 12 to 15,000 ransomware or hack attempts a day. I don't know if anybody recognized that. A day. Yes, a day.
This is a month. This says month, but
I think it's a day.
It's probably,
It does say a month. You're right. I will check on that. I think it's a day. I think it's a day. I think it's a day. It's a huge number. I'll verify that with John, but it's massive. One came into our system in 2001, in October, or it came in July, and it exposed itself
21.
in 21,
2021.
and it came in and exposed itself in October.
Well, we almost got taken for ransom. The biggest issue that contributes to increasing your risk from an IT perspective is simply lack of investment in new technology, because the bad people are constantly, they invest in new technology, and they are way ahead of us, right? And so we almost got ransomed, and that would have been catastrophic. We wouldn't be able to do billing, and we can't operate our systems, and we can't operate the SCADAs. And, you know, we do have some really good safety nets and to separate with hydropower, but that has its own other consideration for IT risk. So from this takeaway should be the lack of investment is what increases your risk tenfold.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've just had legacy technology here at the district for so long. It's time to update that and move past
We have some servers still we have to
issues, right?
light Sage around. Sage.
SCADA,
Staged them.
SCADA, we have SCADA in here, which runs our treatment and hydro operations. That is a unique operational information system that must be taken care of, and it is a key mitigation measure against any risk activity within water plants and our hydroelectric facilities. Again, and then just physical, general facility security, theft, vandalism, remote areas. We have many, many remote sites that we must ensure are operational and functional. So,
And secure from a technology perspective, is that we have the security so we can view them remotely.
So this is one of the 5 slides that we added today that I alluded to earlier. And in time, I think we can get through this in the next 6 minutes, Director Beerwagen. And we can start here next time, perhaps. But this is, again, extremely high level, but looking at a project or program risk estimate, very kind of WAG, no deep analytics, no heavy, but looking at, 5 years seemed a bit short, 10 years seemed a little too long, so 1 to 7 years, right? We know we have the South Yuba Canal coming, the impact in dollars, so I kind of made it like a restaurant. $1 sign is under $5 million, $2 signs is between 5 and 10, and then $3 signs is greater than $10 million in estimate, because we did not have time to do great estimates. So the South Yuba Canal, depending on what happens and what we need to do, what it's going to be as soon as we receive it in fee title, it's going to be somewhere between, $1 million and more than 10.
Yeah.
I don't know.
A year, every year?
No, this is kind of 1 to 7 year.
This is if the highest risk item happens. So in the case of the South Yuba Canal, it's either it burns down from a forest fire, which would be catastrophic. So that is the canal that brings water to Scotts Flat, that brings water to Grass Valley in Nevada City. In addition to a ton of raw water customers. And so if that were to burn down, it is 17 miles long, and the Wood and Flume section's what, Doug, 9?
Yeah, it's 8 or 9 something.
Yeah, it's 7 to 9.
So the purpose of this slide is really not to identify, there's so many factors and variabilities that could happen on any one.
Well, there's 2 big ones. It could burn down, or there's a giant landslide. And the giant landslide is probably more likely.
It rains.
Oh, yeah.
And where it is, the location of where it could be, right? It's got to be helicoptered in. Everybody's got to walk in with everything. It could be, you know, $5 million, or it could be more.
It's more likely happening than a 7 on a Richter scale.
The impact
happening in San Francisco.
So walking through this little table, the impact to health and safety is high, right? That's a high impact to the health and safety of the district customers. And the probability of something happening in, you know, of a pretty large dollar amount, I don't know. Is it high? Is it not? That's debatable. It's debatable. But again, these are not prognostications of what will happen. It's just, as we look at probabilities, is it high that something can happen, that we have to spend a $5 million fix to something in the next 7 years? Probably a good chance. Scott Spillway repair, we know that's happening. We know already that it's going to be greater than $10 million. Treated water main replacements, we don't know where they're going to happen, but there's going to be a dollar amount there, and they're aging infrastructure. Something will happen at some point in the next 5 to 7 years that it's probable, that it's high likelihood that there's going to be some breaks along the way, wherever they are. IT systems, you know, they're roughly under $1 million to fix and upgrade everything that we really have. So, you know, but it's a little medium on the health and safety. It's like, you know, we can hobble through that we've done if something happened. But the probability of something happening to our IT systems, or in the need of something to be changed in the next 5 to 7 years, is pretty high. Our offices, this building, other facilities, the hydro office, the plaster yard, you know, those are old and aging, and they're not always accessible and things like that. And so, relatively low health and safety, probability of us needing to adjust things, maybe medium, not so much. Canal maintenance, health and safety canal maintenance depends where it is. If it's a canal that's feeding a treatment plant, that health and safety is going to be high. We have 500 miles of canal, but you know, not everything feeds a treatment plant right away. So, but the probability of ongoing canal maintenance, pretty high. Forested lands, always needing to work on them. Health and safety's high based on fire probabilities, and the probability of things happening within the forested lands relatively are high. Here it gets to that sort of gasp in the last slide about dam failure, right? We know it's expensive, no matter what it is, and health and safety is huge, no matter where it is. Probability of a dam failure is pretty low in all practical purposes, right? So I think we'll stop there because we're almost out of time, and we can pick up here when we come back, but we got a couple questions, a couple minutes for questions if we need them, or happy for clarifications too, if anyone in the public wants to send emails and say, hey, can you address this?
Does anybody from the public, Mr. Feldman, please go ahead.
Unmute, and I very much appreciate the presentation. I think it missed 3 points that I'd like to bring up that are consequences of what Nevada Irrigation District has already done in terms of land acquisition and planning. Number one, there's definitely a risk to the local real estate market because of the need for agents to disclose the potential of what might be Centennial Dam to buyers in Placer and Nevada counties, making it harder to sell their property. That isn't a risk to NID, it's a risk to another outside market. It's a consequence of NID having acquisition plans and potentially eminent domain plans on land that would be in the inundated area. Number two, the properties that NID has already acquired have a fire liability, which you've already discussed in forested lands. And third, the risk of losing opportunities. There are many public sources, tribes, and nonprofits that want to help resource management, preserve areas, treat some areas, have trails improvement. And as long as that is hanging over the head, the potential for Centennial, these funded opportunities cannot go forth. So what I'm asking as a member of the public who is not part of your customer base is that you look at consequences as risks to others in the community and other areas, the stakeholders that are not represented by the district. And I appreciate your time. And I think this has been a fabulous discussion, not only the risk, but the strategic plan discussion was exhilarating. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Feldman. Any other questions from our friends on Zoom? Not seeing any. Diana did leave us Gamson. Knew I was going to butcher that. A nice message, great meeting. Thank you all. Anybody here in the room, public? Mr. Feldman has raised his hand again. Go ahead, Stuart.
I hit the button wrong.
That's okay.
I have a question or a request maybe. I very much appreciate the addition of the slide you just ended with. It seems that the 10 million or over category would be helpful. Jennifer and I were talking about the South Yuba Canal risk there. And just in that conversation, you said, well, it could be 20 million bucks if that's real. Not to speak of the loss of the water to the community. So it seems like 10 million and over is a category that's a little too broad for my taste. I mean, I'd like, you know, if it's going to be 20 million, I'd like to see the category, you know, and I know you're just kind of putting a wag at it, that's fine, and I can see why, but if we have some risks that are really at that mega level, that we need to call them out a little more clearly than over 10 million, because when you get into 20 million or more and more.
Why don't we, I don't disagree at all with that comment. I think one of the challenges specifically with the South Yuba Canal is it depends on what happens. If the entire portion of Wood and Flume burns down, we're in big trouble. That's really costly. If we have to repair a small area of slide, you know, you could certainly be in that $5 to $10 million range. Why don't we do a little bit more work on breaking the risks out into a more traditional risk matrix? And once we do that, because we won't lump South Yuba Canal all as just one line item, we can go through and provide a little just bulleted detail on impacts to service, you know, replacement costs, whatever comes out of the impact associated with the risk, if the risk does occur. And I think that might flush your.
I think that would be really helpful. It seems too that maybe some of the treated water plants, having a little bit more clarity there on the level of risk. I mean, we've got Lake Wildwood, we know that's a problem.
Yeah, the biggest issue with any type of treated water plant or even a sewer plant is the changing regulations, and your plant can no longer meet the effluent limit requirements.
I have a comment too. What I didn't see there was the FERC requirements that we're facing. And I don't know how you account for those, but that is a financial risk that is a giant cloud hanging over all of our heads that impacts everything else.
Yeah, so that's in the regulatory risk. I think Greg just didn't quite get to that spot in our presentation. Yeah.
It should be within that matrix in some way.
We can do that. We'll just take some of this and pull it apart a little bit more so you can kind of get a sense.
Thank you very much.
Oh, we have another hand. Let's see, we have two hands up. I have Mr. Mark Henry. Can you please unmute yourself? Mark Henry? No, we're trying, Mark. Hold on one second.
Did I successfully unmute myself?
I think it was on our
Okay,
end
I
was
did
the
not
issue.
successfully
Please go
unmute.
ahead. Mr. Henry?
Nope.
We lost him. Mr. Henry, do you want to unmute yourself again?
Okay, have I successfully
go.
unmuted myself?
You are. You're
Yes.
great. We can hear you.
I can't hear myself. Okay, great. So, yeah, obviously I'm technologically challenged. I apologize for that. I just wanted to, this has been very enlightening. I have appreciated the fact that I can watch this via Zoom. Mr. Feldman's comment regarding taking into account how what we do here impacts those who are not necessarily shareholders leads me to wonder if we're going to expand this discussion beyond the shareholders of this region. Should we ask the Metropolitan Water District of Los Angeles to join this discussion? That's all I had to say.
All right, thank you, Mr. Henry. I think for the purpose of this discussion is really intended to talk about risks to our existing mission, which is to provide a sustainable source of water. Some of those exterior risks, I think that will come out in some of our SWOT analysis because, those are really those items that are external to us. So I don't think they're going to be lost, but they're very valid points. But I certainly can understand that's a hard one, the consequences of what you do outside of your direct mission can be difficult to define in a reasonable manner, but I think a really good spot to try to do that is in the SWOT analysis.
And I also think that a district impact of these is the legal risk of lawsuits due to inverse condemnation. So that is a real district risk. Right.
Yeah, I would agree. I think a lot of our external outside consequences or potential consequences are really legal risks. Yeah. All right, and then we have a phone number ending in 3755. Please go ahead. You have to star 6 to unmute. Oh, you've muted yourself again. Let's try one more time. Star 6. There you go.
Hi. I have a risk comment I'd like to make. This is Mike Pasner. Good afternoon. I've been farming with NID water in Penn Valley for 36 years. I'm addressing this risk workshop today due to the continued use of aquatic and terrestrial herbicides in my agricultural water. Copper-based Cutrine and Nautique are applied directly to the water. Roundup sprayed on the berms and banks of more than 100 miles of these irrigation ditches. Most of these applications are on private farms and ranches. Roundup is a known carcinogen. There are some questions and some facts here. Do these toxins end up in people's wells? Does NID test for them? Kids play in the ditch water on hot summer days. Livestock drink out of the ditch water. NID paid over $70,000 for the Brickmont study about 1.5 years ago. The results of this study were to keep our toolboxes open for future action. Nothing very finite that I could tell. With a safe, sustainable, and resilient water supply, there is no place for these toxins. What is the risk of not seriously looking at alternatives before this type of application directly to the water and sprayed on the berms and banks, prohibited by regulation. Thank you.
All right, that is a really good one. I think, as Mr. Posner just referenced, some of that would definitely can be referenced in the regulatory risk category, because there are very strict regulations that keep evolving for any type of chemical use, which is going to constantly be an issue.
I think his point is the regulations are behind.
Right.
And it very well could be, right?
Keeping up with some of
Well, they're
the
not.
consequences.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of money and time prior to you coming around, trying to see options to eliminate, those chemicals in our canals. And we came up with some interesting alternatives, but then everything just kind of got dropped, I think. I don't really.
Well, it's still yeah.
They're hugely expensive. All the alternatives today are hugely expensive.
Is that what it was?
It is, but I think that technology, as I keep saying, is changing at such a rapid pace that there will be, something that is a very time-intensive, labor-intensive solution now may be much more viable in the future. Because I actually did read the study. Oh, yeah. I wanted to shoot the walnut seed blaster myself when I first read about it, yeah.
You want to get rid of that one?
No, I want to use it. Stop.
Absolutely.
She wanted to use it.
Yes, I wanted to use it. No, and I've talked to them about the steam machine, and some of them are just problematic because the technology is really clunky, but you will see in the next 2 years, we're going to continue to work on it. It hasn't been at the forefront of our conversations, but we haven't forgotten about it.
But I agree with Mike Kasner that should be incorporated into this risk category, because we have lawsuit risk for health. I mean,
you could have long-term legal implications. Yeah. Look what happened with Roundup, right? Or
that's right.
What they used to use, DDT.
Yeah, remember the DDT?
Always a potential issue. Yep. All right. Anybody else before we get off this one? We are 10 minutes past Mr. Beerwagen's hard stop. All right, so we'll finish this up. We got some good feedback, and we'll finish this up next time. We'll bring a matrix, and I think that is all we have for tonight, if everyone's good to go.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, public, and public is attended, and the meeting is adjourned.